Hello. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversation with Grandma Polly. Did you know there are 574 federally recognized tribes in the United States? Of the 574 recognized tribes, 229 are found in Alaska. California has the second largest number federally recognized with 109 tribes, as well as California having the largest Native American population in the United States. Let's put a pin right there and we'll be right back.
Here come the big rig kids, y'all. Are you ready? Let's go. Here come the big rig kids. Roll with the big rig kids. Let's fire the truck, take you to such amazing places with the big rig kids. Those helpful big rig kids. See how they give and grow and get to know amazing things. Learn with the big rig kids, then you'll see how it is to have adventure days and hang and play with all your friends. Because the big rig kids know what it is to live a most exciting and inviting life is positive.
Hello and welcome to Conversation with Grandma Polly. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining us tonight. And I must mention our new followers that we've gained this week. You guys keep up the good work, keep telling people about us, keep sharing our posts. And as I speak of sharing posts, share this post right now because we have some great information that's going to come your way. But before we do that, this month is Native American Month. And I would like to introduce to you all one of my mentors and good friend, Ramona Moore Big Eagle.
Tonight's guest, Ramona Moore Big Eagle, is an internationally renowned TEDx speaker, storyteller, oral historian, and legend keeper. In addition, she is also an environmental educator and master naturalist. Ramona has served on the Tribal Council and in various other capacities for the Tuscarora Nation of North Carolina. She earned a Master of Education degree from East Tennessee State University in Reading and Storytelling and a Bachelor of Art degree in Psychology from Catawba College. Ramona travels throughout the United States and Canada as a motivational speaker, cultural educator, consultant, workshop facilitator, and storyteller. Her workshops and programs of American Indian culture and history are delivered through the art of storytelling, authentic artifacts, music, drumming, dance, and crafts, and she's been educating and empowering audiences of all ages since 1978. When presenting American Indian culture, Ramona erases stereotypes and myths concerning the culture and provides programming that covers aspects of daily life in lodging, clothing, survival techniques, artifacts, foods, art, dance, stories, language, music, and beliefs from the past to the present. Ramona Moore Big Eagle is president and CEO of Dare to Soar Enterprises, a company she started in 1991. The company's purpose is to inspire and empower people of all ages in all walks of life to become even more effective communicators through the power of storytelling. Learn more and support Ramona's journey by visiting her website at www.ramonamorebigeagle.com. So without further ado, Conversations with Grandma Polly friends and followers, let's give a warm welcome to our very special guest, Ramona Moore Big Eagle.
Ramona. Y'all, let's welcome Ramona. Let's give some hearts. Let's give some love. Let's give some stars. Ramona, I am. Ooh, the words just don't describe. I can't describe how happy I am to have my friend and mentor join me this evening, especially as we go into, the Native American month. I've learned so much from you and the things from you about your culture. But before, let's just get started. Let's dive into it. We know
Okay.
that there are so many different tribes out there. Could you tell us the name of your tribe and where your tribe is located?
Yes, I'll be happy to. First off, I want to say I'm so glad to be here. I am from the Tuscarora Nation of North Carolina. I am an enrolled member. Our reservation is located in Maxton, North Carolina, which is right off of Highway 74. Most people in North Carolina, when they're on their way to Myrtle Beach, they take 74 and they go right past the exit for Maxton, North Carolina, which is where my reservation is located. The Tuscaroras are located here in North Carolina and also in New York State, Upper New York State. We're the sixth nation of the Iroquois Confederacy, the Haudenosaunee people. So we have two reservations here in North Carolina in Maxton and in Lewiston, New York.
Awesome. That is great. And I encourage you parents out there who are watching, if you have children that's in the home, bring them in because we're going to do a little history and a little education here tonight.
And don't forget
Ramona and I,
storytelling.
yes, how could I forget that? How can I forget that? That's one of the things you've been working with me on, and I appreciate that. And you and I have sat around when we've had conversations about the Native American culture, and I would speak about our African American culture, and we would make comparisons in some of the things that we've learned growing up and some of the things that are still happening today. Can you tell us a little bit more about your culture? I see the beautiful costumes and I see the photos you tell me about the powwow and so many other things. So I'm just gonna be quiet and let you elaborate on some of this.
Okay. Well, it's my pleasure to do so. In fact, that's one of the ways I go through life. I do cultural presentations all over the United States and abroad. In fact, just all over the world doing this. And as a cultural educator, I love to share with people about my culture and also, give them examples of our culture through the artifacts that I bring with me when I do presentations. And I saw that someone said they'd heard of the Lumbee in Lumberton, but they weren't familiar with the Tuscaroras. And the Lumbee and the Tuscaroras are closely related to each other. You find the same names in both tribes, in both nations, Lumbee and in Tuscarora. You find some of the same surnames. So we're very closely related to each other and in the same area. But as far as our culture goes, we have a very vibrant culture. It's not, we have not lost our language. We still speak our language. Our language is still spoken to this day by many of our elders and some of the young people that have, taken on the task of learning our language. Our language is on the internet, so anyone can actually learn our language. And Dr. Rudds wrote a dictionary, the Tuscarora English and English Tuscarora Dictionary. So it's a very good book for anyone that wants to learn the language. Powwows, and first let me just tell everyone what a powwow is. Most people, when you say the word powwow, they think, oh, someone's having a disagreement, so they're going to get together and iron it out, settle it, up. But that's not what a powwow is. I don't know how that word powwow ever came to be associated with settling an argument or, having a come to Jesus meeting or whatever people call it. A powwow is a celebration of our culture. We celebrate as far as dancing, we have drumming, dancing, singing, storytelling. We all wear our regalia. That's what we call our clothing, regalia. We never call our clothing costumes. And the reason is this: people wear costumes like they did October 31st when they are pretending to be something that they are not. So they wear costumes. We never call our clothing costumes because we're not pretending anything, and we're dressed as who we really are, our true selves in our regalia. So we call it our regalia because it tells the story of who we are and, somewhat about our culture. It's carrying on the tradition that's been passed on from generation after generation, the clothing that we wear, the regalia. So when you come to a powwow, you see all the dancers in their regalia, you hear the drum, you hear the songs, the music, the storytelling. In most cases, you'll have the opportunity to eat authentic native food like bison, buffalo, or deer, venison, burgers, and you'll have Indian tacos, as they're called, which is basically on fry bread, which is truly a traditional food among indigenous people, Native Americans. And as I just said, I use the word indigenous and Native Americans enter, together because some Native people only want to be called indigenous. Some Native people only want to be called Native Americans. Some want to be called American Indian. I think the majority, though, would tell you that what we really want is to be called by who we are. So if we're from the Tuscarora Nation, we want to be called a Tuscaroran. If we're from the Mohawk Nation, we want to be called a Mohawk. If we're from the Seneca or the Oneida, the Cayuga, we want to be called by our nation or First Nations. We were the First Nations here in North America. So that's how most of us usually prefer to be referred to as. Um,
I
so
I
a little
mean,
bit,
very informative. And as much as you and I have talked, I learned something just in that little short moment. When I said costume, it's not costume.
right?
It's something. Now you got to pronounce that word again for me because I'm not familiar with it. Say it again.
Regalia. It's regalia.
Regalia.
Regalia. Uh-huh.
Okay. With the regalias, I okay, yeah, I understand that's what it is now. But when I saw you with the skirt, and Kenny, we're gonna get back to those pictures because Ramona, a lot of the regalias and stuff that you guys wear, you make it yourselves, right?
Yes. Unfortunately, there's no store you can just go in and say, I have a fancy dance regalia or a jingle dress regalia or a grass dancer's regalia. There are no stores that just sell our regalia. So we all make our regalia by hand ourselves. And the wonderful thing about it, it's not like you can even buy a pattern for our regalia. All of our regalia is handed down, just like the dances are handed down, the language is handed
Mm-hmm.
down, the customs and traditions are handed down from elders to the young people who then hand it down to their children, and their children's children. That's how the patterns for the regalia. I learned how to make the regalia from from elders and other indigenous women, Native American women who learned it from their grandparents and from their elders. So my daughters now make their regalia because I showed them, how to make regalia, and we do it all together. My daughter, my youngest one, Stephanie, made her first regalia when she was 10. Amber was 12 at the time. So they made their first regalia as a 10 and a 12-year older. And I still have those dresses to this day. And when I do presentations, Native American cultural presentations, I have 12 feet of artifacts, 2 6-foot tables that I set up with artifacts from one end to the other. And one of the things I have on that table is that dress that my daughter Stephanie made when she was 10 years old.
Oh, that is awesome. Kenny, there is a picture that played in the beginning where it's that whole group. Can you put that picture up with Ramona? Because I have a few questions about that. And if I'm not mistaken, Ramona, I think you told me y'all made everything in that down to the shoes.
Yes, down to the moccasins. So that's a picture of me next to my granddaughter Alana, my grandson AJ, my daughter Amber, and my granddaughter Ariana. And each of us are wearing a different type regalia because we are different dancers. I'm a traditional dancer, so that shawl shows that I'm, basically a traditional dancer. My granddaughter Alana is a fancy dancer, just like her mother is. My grandson AJ is a grass dancer, a grass dancer. And then my granddaughter on the end, Ariana, is a jingle dress dancer. So each dance has a story behind it. It has a certain way of being, as far as footwork and everything, and a particular regalia for that particular dance. And it's not like I told Amber, you've got to become a fancy dancer. When your children first start walking, you take them into the arena with you, and they just pick up the dances, and they either either they feel like the particular dance has called them, or they call to the dance itself. But they go with the dance that they feel is what they're called to do. And we believe that all of life is a story. As a storyteller, I love sharing our culture through story, and we believe that all of life is a dance too. This planet goes around the sun, and it's a dance around the sun. And our life on this planet, Mother Earth, as some people say, Turtle Island, is a dance each and every day. It's the dance of life, and it takes the heartbeat, and that's what our drum is. It's the heartbeat
Mm.
of the earth, the heartbeat of the people, and the heartbeat of our dances.
And I mean, this is just totally awesome. I'm enjoying this. And no disrespect to you, but I want you guys to really listen. When I'm speaking to Miss Ramona, it's not just directly about or towards her culture. When I'm speaking to her, I speak to about what I know about my culture. When I said shoes, they call it moccasins.
Moccasins,
You know, when I said costume, they call it something else.
regalia.
Regalia. You know, you're gonna have to teach me that one. They call it the regalia, and it's because we don't know the culture. We don't have that way of effectively communicating, and it's not out of disrespect, but these are the differences in culture. And
Hmm.
when I hear her speak, she talk about the dances and the different types of dances and all of those things. Us from the African American community, we have our way with music, we have our way with dance. There's so many things that we have in common, but still yet they're different, but they're more alike than they are different. And if we as a society could just get to the point to take just a little time to start learning these different cultures, I believe within my heart that the world would be a much better place, because we won't be just so self-centered on what we know and what we believe, instead of taking the moment in time to understand other people's culture, because we're all human on this earth. And Ramona, you know where I'm going next, right?
No, but I'm
That
sure you're going to
hat,
tell me.
that hat. When you first introduced me to that hat, me being a hat person, guys, I was like, oh, Miss Ramona, I gotta have that hat. Where did you get that hat? I need one. And she busted my bubble. But I'm going to let her tell you guys the story of the hat, because as you can see, it is just so beautiful. Ramona, please give us the story behind the hat. I love it.
Okay. Well, my daughter and my three grandchildren live in Florida. I should have told my daughter I was going to be on this too. I forgot to. But anyway, maybe you'll have a
It'll be
replay.
here when it's done. She'll be able to go back and watch
Okay, great. You would have thought I would have thought of that. But anyway.
it.
So my daughter's in Florida, she and my grandchildren, and she's grown up going to powwows. So, and also she does the same thing I do in Florida. Amber Saunders, and you can see her
Mm-hmm.
on the internet too, dancing at powwows, and she's been on billboards. She went to Italy, by the way, for 3 weeks to
Okay.
dance, share native culture this summer. I didn't go because someone had to keep the dog. So anyway, that's a whole nother story. But the hat, she was at a powwow and she saw this hat and she thought, oh my goodness, my mother would love that hat. So she called me and she said, Mother, I've got something I want to show you. Don't scream when I show it to you because I don't want you to blow my eardrums out. And listen, she did a FaceTime. She had the hat on, right? I said, oh
Uh-huh.
my goodness, Amber, that's beautiful. I said, I want one like it. She said, well, I'm showing it to you because I thought you would want it. And if you want me to buy this for you, I said, oh my goodness, yes, yes, yes. Now, let me tell you about the hat. This hat was made by my sister, and I'm actually looking at her information on the little card that came with the hat. This was made by one of my native sisters, an indigenous sister. Her name is Linda Nakandine. Okay. She's from the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin. And she makes beaded hats. The hat itself is handmade. Okay. Then she does the beadwork and the earrings. And I have
Okay.
a necklace that goes with it too. I just didn't put the necklace on. I have in the other one of the pictures you showed, I'm wearing the necklace that she made too. So the hat, the earrings, and the necklace she made all herself, and it's absolutely beautiful. I highly recommend if someone wants something like this, and no two hats are alike. So you can never get her to make this hat for you because she made
Mm-hmm.
it, but she'll be glad to make a beautiful hat for you. And again, her name is Linda. Her last name is Nokidineh. It's Nokidineh. She's from the Oneida Nation in Wisconsin. And she is on Facebook. So you can look her up and get in touch with her and say, I saw Ramona Big Eagle's hat and I want a beaded hat also. And she'll be glad to set you up. When I saw this hat and had to have
When I saw that hat, I was like, Ramona, I just love it being the hat person that I am. And just the history behind it that someone would sit down and just those little tiny beads, is tedious. But
Yeah.
she did an awesome job with it.
Mm.
And Ramona, you have done so much. And before we go into the things you have done personally, I want to ask a question. And I know we've done this just in our community when I was growing up. I could remember my grandmother. I used to have a real big, thick Bible. And in the front of it, it was like where you could write the history and the family tree and all that stuff in it. And what exactly is your duties as the legend keepers? Because I think in our culture, we have kind of gotten away from that. And I would like to hear about it from, your side, and then we'll come back and discuss that some more, but explain it to us.
Okay. Now, before I do, I saw someone ask a question, so I want to answer
Okay.
this before I forget about it. They wanted to know the spelling of her last name. It's Nokidineh. Linda Nakadine. And she's from the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin. And she does have a Facebook page, and you can go on her Facebook and tell her And she has lots of pictures of the hats that she's made on there. All of them are beautiful, every single one. I just happen to think that mine is the most beautiful. But anyway, so a legend keeper. In our culture, our stories tell who we are and the experiences that we have. Our stories are passed on from one generation to the next through just the telling of them. So our stories actually carry on our culture, our tradition. And the purpose of the stories from the very beginning and still to this day was to pass on life lessons, culture, traditions, and customs. All right. So all the stories that I tell are stories that I heard from my father, my mother, my aunts, uncles, grandparents, my chief, clan mothers, other tribal storytellers and legend keepers from different tribes. So these are all stories that have been passed on from mouth to ear and ear to mouth, and mouth to ear, and on and on and on, and they all have a lesson to them, so that when children were growing up, instead of a parent always saying, now you shouldn't do that, they just remind the child of a story they had told that taught that lesson. And immediately the child got without the parent only saying the name of the story, or like saying, remember what happened to Fox, remember what happened to Bear. A parent could say, well, remember what happened to Bear, and immediately the child would remember that story and they'd remember the lesson. The lesson from what happened to Bear, as far as Bear's tale, teaches you don't believe everything someone tells you. Verify it, research it, investigate it, see if it really is the truth. Don't take things at face value. Now, that was a mouthful right there, what I said, but all the parent has to do is say, remember what happened to Bear's tail. And the child immediately remembers the lessons that they got from that story. So, storytelling is a very integral part of our culture because it passes on the culture, it passes on our life ways, our lessons that are passed on, as a result of the story. And as a legend keeper, mainly legend keepers, not just me, but all legend keepers, we retain those stories for passing them on. We don't want the stories to die out. So we tell them every place we go so that our children, our children's children, our friends, their children, and everyone hear the stories and they go, that reminds me of the time. And that's usually how my father would start a story. Something would happen or he would see something and goes, that reminds me of the time that, and he'd tell a story. So those stories get passed on, teaching lessons, but also bringing back wonderful memories. And you alluded to this earlier, but stories also connect us. Our brains, as you said earlier, I do have a master's of education in storytelling. I was already a storyteller when I went to get that master's, but I wanted to understand how other cultures look at storytelling. I really only knew how my culture looked at storytelling and how the African American culture and the African culture looked at storytelling. But I wanted to find out, how do other cultures look at storytelling? How do the Irish look at storytelling? How do the Italians look at storytelling? How do Europeans look at storytelling and the role it plays in society and in their life? So I learned a lot in the course of getting that master's. I'm so glad I did it. But one thing I do know, in every culture on this planet, the first artists were always storytellers. Okay, you'd go on a hunt and you'd come back and you'd tell about that hunt, what happened. You'd be out picking berries, foraging for food, and you tell about what you saw along the way, how you came to find these blueberries, growing in a certain grove that you'd never been to before. It's all about the story. Telling of the story is what passes on our life, our culture, our ways, and our traditions. And it brings us together, it connects us. If you go and listen to my TED Talk, which is on my website or just on TED website, you'll hear me talk about how that stories are what connect us. You can have two strangers in a room, and if they don't talk to each other, they remain strangers. But the minute they start talking to each other, they share a story because all of life is a story. All of our communication is a story. On the weekend, you do whatever you do. When you come back that Monday, people say, "Well, how was your weekend?" And you tell a story. So that's
Yes, 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 Ramona. It is so much there. We're going to put a pause right there because we're going to continue this conversation where you left off. I have to thank my audience for being here tonight. I want to thank each and every one of you for taking, this time out just to spend a little time with Grandma Polly and Miss Ramona this evening. And I cannot forget my sponsors, Simone Enterprise and Entertainment Company, KJ Multimedia Solutions, and TNT Real Estate. This could not go on without the support of our sponsors and without the support of you guys joining us and telling others and sharing our videos. And if you would like to become a sponsor, reach out to us. If you would like to be a part of our conversation with Grandma Polly show, reach out to us. And before we go any farther, I have to remind you guys, I have a couple of families that I'm sponsoring for the holidays. We do the Thanksgiving meals, Christmas. We try to provide the wish list of these kids and a holiday meal. The kids that we're dealing with this year, they have lost their moms to domestic violence. And of course, the abuser is in prison 9 times out of 10 was their dad. And these children are living with grandparents. Could you imagine being grandparents starting all over again with small children? So the raffle is available. We have the flyer out there on social media, and there it is again. There's the price of the tickets. The last day to purchase these tickets is the 21st. I want to thank everyone who has purchased tickets already. And if you haven't, please consider purchasing tickets. And if you're not interested in the raffle, just consider making a donation, and we will truly appreciate that. But with all of that being said, we got to get back to Miss Ramona and this storytelling thing because it's just so interesting to be speaking to such a lady of her caliber. And I'm just excited that I got to meet her about 6 or 7 years ago, and we've just stayed in contact. But Miss Ramona, I remember having a conversation with you, and if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, where you talked about, in your record keepings and stuff, you go back 7 generations. And for those of you who had purchased my Big Red Kid Deal with Racism, which Ramona wrote the forward for this book, I appreciate it, Ramona. Thank you. When I speak of the records keeping, it was like, my grandparents, they would tell a story. But our method of record keepings was they had this big old Bible. And
mm-hmm.
I know quite a few of you guys out there watching it. Remember it. My husband still has his mother's. And in that Bible, it kept records of when people got married, when they had children, when they were baptized. And you could always go back to that for those records. So with this book, the one that deals with racism, I kind of went back into that because we live all over the world now.
Mm-hmm.
Back during the day, families lived right next door to each other, and you could howl across the yard and you're having that conversation. But with us being so far apart, what I did for my grandkids, and hopefully it encouraged anybody out there, and those of you who have read the book, I hope it encouraged you to go back and write down your family tree so that you could pass it on to your children. I was able to go back to, on both sides, my maternal and my paternal side, to my great grandparent and bring it in through my grandparents, my parents, my siblings, aunts, uncles, and so far. But for me, that was only what, five, six generations. But when it went to my children, that brought them into the sixth, seventh generation. And hopefully that they will continue with it because so much of our history has been lost and so many of our elders have passed on that we have no idea what that family tree looks like other than the immediate family and maybe our mother and father and maybe their parents. And some of them have never met their grandparents because the grandparents died off before, they were born. So that's one of the things I encouraged in that book as an activity. And also, Ramona, in that book, which you read it, but I'm just giving a little information. In the book, there is a chapter where the kids talked about how their community got started, the history there. So let's get our children involved in some of that, even if they have to do research, because these things are important to pass down. And I had it for my grandparents. But like I said, everybody's so scattered and everybody's so far away, they barely know who grandparents are today. So, Ramona,
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit about that from your aspect and your culture.
Okay. Well, my grandmother on my dad's side, and I think on my mother's side too, also had the large family Bible. And in it, it had all the records of all the marriages, the births, the deaths. So I'm very familiar with that. I can remember my grandmother's Bible, and I can remember one of my first Bibles. I remember putting down because it always had that section for it, about my mom and dad's marriage and my grandparents' marriage, and when they were born and all like that. So that's very important. And another, as far as someone that's doing their genealogy and trying to find out about their roots, one of the things that I always encourage people to do is to look at census records.
Mm-hmm.
Census records will tell you a lot about your family, where they were from, their addresses they lived at, how many were in the house. Well, everything that you have to answer for the census records. So it all is on the census records. So that's a very good way of finding out about, your ancestors, your parents, 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 going back to your great, great, great grandparents. And not only are we concerned with the past as far as our genealogy, but the seven generations also has to do with how our mindset towards the world today. We feel like what we do in this life, in this world, to this earth, and with each other should count for setting up a good world, a good life for seven generations going forward into the future. So, with that in mind, we always think about how will this affect seven generations out? If you pollute the waters, what's it going to be like seven generations going forward in the future for our great, 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 great grandchildren? So you have to be mindful of how this will affect the future, what you do today. Because as it's been said in our culture, what you do to one, we believe, life is like a big web. What you do on one part of the web affects the entire web. It affects, and people have the saying that when a butterfly wings are flapping in Australia, it has a effect here in the United States because what goes around comes around. We're all connected. So that's why we need to be mindful of how we take care of the earth. What are we doing to our water? What are we doing to the food sources? What are we doing to the air? How do we treat this earth that we are connected to for life? How do we treat it? Are we taking care of it? Right, the butterfly effect. Are we taking care of this and leaving something to our children's 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 children? Because that's who's inheriting the earth, our children and their children, and on and on. So it's really important that we, think about that as far as how we conduct our life and what we do.
Yes, yes, yes. And this may be a little offside, but it's coming back in too. Because lately, we've been hearing a lot in the news how they're taking certain books out of the library and there's certain things that they're not teaching in history. Me personally, I believe the most important history that we could teach our children is the history of our family, where we came from, and who we are. They may be able to erase a whole lot of other stuff, but with my history of my family, if I'm passing that history down to my children, no one can take that away from them.
True.
And saying that, that's just that I'm a strong believer in that. But Ramona, yeah, I'm finna get in your business and in your house now. There is this one little known fun fact about Ramona Moore Big Eagle. If y'all look behind her, y'all think that's a lot of books, right? But let me tell y'all something. Ramona has over, and I want y'all to hear this number. It's not exaggerated. I'm telling you guys the truth. Ramona has over 35,000 books in her home. Ramona have walls, but you can't see them because they're all bookshelves. And as Ramona tells it, Ramona says that she has read every one of these books. So I'm going to leave that right there and let Ramona elaborate on that aspect of her life.
Okay, my obsession. I've always been an avid reader. My mom and dad were avid readers. My mom is still alive. She's 93, and my dad passed in 2000. But my parents were both avid readers. In fact, I grew up in a house that had one bathroom. It had three bedrooms and one bathroom. And my dad would sit in the bathroom and read the newspaper and books. And I remember saying, I'm never going to be like that when I grow up. I am so like that. But anyway, so my mom and dad always bought me books. There was always great reading material. And as I love to tell people, when I was in fourth grade, my dad was reading Mein Kampf, Hitler's book. And he was so excited about it. He would talk about different things about it at dinner time. And it was so interesting to me that I wanted to read it. So in fourth grade, I read Mein Kampf. My dad and I carried on many conversations about it. If you haven't read it, you should. It's something else to read. I'll just put it that way. But so I remember one time my mom and dad, we always went on vacations and trips and stuff. They took me and my brother to Asheville, North Carolina, to the Biltmore House. And when we went to the Biltmore House, I mean, it still is a huge grand mansion, okay, a castle. Okay, it's one of the largest homes here in the United States, the Biltmore House. And, we were just amazed at how huge it was, and especially as a child. Everything, if you ever gone back to your old elementary school, you thought it was huge when you were a kid, but now when you go
Yes,
back, it's not that big. But so as a child, everything looks bigger than it actually is because you are the one that's so small. So as a second grader, when I went to that Biltmore house, I was amazed at how beautiful it was and how big. But I'll never forget when we went to the library. I don't remember any other room other than that one room. That library at the Biltmore House holds 10,000 books, okay? A volume of books, 10,000. And I can remember just looking up because it had huge ceilings, okay? and just going around and around and around, just looking at all these leather bound books. Okay. I was so impressed. And I said, from that moment on, when I grow up, I'm going to live in a house that has at least 10,000 books. And of course, I picked that number because that's how many they had. Well, when I went home, I said, this book, I picked up the first book I saw, and I said, this book starts my 10,000 volume library. And it was a book called The Big Jump. It was a weekly reader, Dr. Seuss book. I still have that book to this day. It was The Big Jump
Wow.
and Other Stories. I love it. So that started the obsession. And I have every book I've ever had since second grade. And I mean, I love to read. It's my favorite thing to do. So any book I see, I have to have it. Now, back to the statement you made. I've said this and it's true. I've read, but let me listen to how I say it. I have read some of every single book in this house. And what that means is this: some books I only buy for a chapter that they have on storytelling, or for a chapter that they have on Native culture, Indigenous people, or a chapter that they have on history. Okay. So I might not read the whole book, but I've read some of every single book in this house for whatever reason I bought the book for. Okay. And I love to reread them too. I go back and read some of the books I've already read before. And this obsession has moved me from two houses. Okay, I remember when my daughter Amber first had my first grandchild. She and her husband had Ariana. And Amber told me, Mom, we love you dearly, but we are not going to bring Ariana to your house because you have 6 foot stacks of books just every place. I had run out of wall space and bookcases. So I just had 6 foot stacks of books everywhere. And she said, because
Wow.
we are not going to let a 6 foot stack of books fall on our little girl. So when they said that, I decided I was going to move. Okay. Because I did not want my books to stand between me and my granddaughter. It took me 2 years to pack
Hmm.
up all, never moved this house. And, so I moved. And so, of course, they did bring Ariana. And I raised my children without a TV because I thought, why let them see TV and get distracted from the best thing in the world, which is reading the book? So I raised my children. I haven't had a TV since 1972 when I left home and went to college. And of course, as a result, whenever they were bored, I said, go read a book. And they would. So they grew up liking to read. They claim they don't like to read, but I know they really do. They just don't want to admit it because that makes them sound nerdy. Anyway, my children grew up reading instead of looking at TV, and it's made a world of difference. All three of them are articulate, smart, wise, world experiences that you'd never have if you hadn't traveled and read books also. So that's my
Right.
obsession with books, and I love it.
Right. And I'm a true believer that, reading books is an adventure and it can take you places that you may never travel to in life.
True.
But just reading it, you could get it, especially when it's a story that draws you in and you read it and you get that experience without ever having to leave your home. So when it comes down to books, I'm a big advocate when it comes down to reading. But speaking of books, Ramona, wait a minute, I gotta ask this question. How long have you been doing storytelling?
Um, back when I was in, I think I was either 12 or 13, I went on my first trip. And I was a storyteller then. I've always done storytelling. But I felt like I had all the money I needed, but I felt like I needed $100 more. So I offered to tell a story, write a story for my relatives if they would just send me a donation. So that was the first
Mm-hmm.
time I got paid for storytelling back when I was like 12, 13, something like that. It was my first trip for an association conference I went to, and I just felt like I needed more money. But anyway, I've been telling stories officially, getting paid for it, other than when I was a
Mm-hmm.
kid, for about 40 years. I've always
Okay,
told.
and I asked that because I'm not going to tell your age. You carry it
Oh,
really
I don't
well,
mind.
honey. How old are you, Ramona?
I'm 68 years young.
I hear you,
And
girl, and
you don't
still be
believe
wanting
me,
to.
if you don't believe me,
And
just go skydiving with me over Dubai.
that's what I was just getting ready to say. She's 68 years old and still be wanting to jump out of planes and white water and all this other stuff. So she's a young lady in a 68-year-old body. But I asked that because, like I said, I've known Ramona now for about 6 or 7 years. And I've always known Ramona to tell stories. Ramona has even read through some of my stuff and gave advice on it. Ramona is part of, we have to shout them out, our Wits Writers Group. Hey, Wayne, John, Ramona, Caroline, Felicia, and so many
Girl.
others. Vince, Cheryl, all you guys. We have fun with that, right? So we would
Hmm.
always ask Ramona, when are you going to write your book? Because Ramona shows up for it. As a matter of fact, Ramona's been in this writing group before me, and this is where I met her. Ramona, when are you going to write your book? I'm going to get to it. And just like she's smiling right now, that's what she would always do. Y'all so funny. I'm going to get to it. Well, y'all, I am proud to tell y'all Ramona finished her very first written book last year. And Ramona's going to tell you guys how you could get it and the title of it. It's Turtle Island. She's going to tell you how you could get her book.
Okay, well, the easiest way to get one of my books is to go to Amazon, and the name of the book is Turtle Island by Ramona Moore, Big Eagle. That's the easiest way to get. Now, of
Yes.
course, if you want an autographed copy, you could get
Don't
in
do
touch with
it.
me. She's saying that because I'm just supposed to send her a book for, I know it's over a year now, and I still haven't sent it. I got the
And she's
envelope,
been,
I've had it addressed, but I just haven't sent it yet.
she was supposed to. Did you tell me you were sending me 2 books?
True.
Uh huh.
I guess so now. Yeah, I'll send you two. But Turtle Island, read it. It's our creation story. It's the Iroquois Haudenosaunee creation story. And it tells, most people have probably heard the term. Well, I understand that most people outside of our culture haven't. But we call where we live Turtle Island. And this story is a traditional story that tells you why we call it Turtle Island. So you can get it from Amazon. If you
Okay.
live in Charlotte or near, you can get it from me, and I will autograph it for you. Just don't ask
Don't,
me to
don't,
mail
don't,
it.
don't do it. Don't do it. But I will tell y'all this. This is my promise to you guys. Kenny, I think Felicia's still on here. I need you or Felicia, whoever's on here, to monitor this board. The first person who can answer the name of the clothing that I called costumes, Ramona repeated it many a times. The first person to put that in the comment box, I'm just gonna go ahead and order. I don't like purchasing books from Amazon. I like to get it from the author so they can get all their money. But I'm going to go ahead and order the book from Amazon for Wayne Cooper. I think it's Lisa, the regalia. Is that what
That's
it is?
right. That's correct. Lisa
Okay,
got it.
Lisa Maddox answered first, then Wayne Cooper, then Jackie Singleton. You and Wayne, y'all were late. Lisa, you got the book. I'm I'm waiting on Ramona. Ramona was supposed to send these books to me 2 weeks ago. But if I don't get the book by Thanksgiving, Lisa, I'm going to get the book off of Amazon and send it to you. But I would prefer you having that autographed copy.
I
So,
will.
Lisa, you have a copy of the book, and I thank you for joining in. This has been such an interesting conversation. Before we go, someone asked the question, where is
Turtle Island.
Turtle Island?
That's a great question. And guess what? You'll have to buy the book to find out.
Ooh, okay. How can they get the book? You did say Amazon, right?
Right? They can get it on Amazon. If they live anywhere near Charlotte, they can get in touch with me. I don't mind putting my phone number up. They can call me at, you want me to give my phone number or you want to post it or what do you want me to do?
Yes, you could put it up because we leave this up and someone else may see it and may want to order the
Yeah.
book.
Okay, so
What
my
is the
phone number
number?
704-779-8632. You can also use that number if you want to hire me to come and do Native American cultural presentations. If you want me to get with you to give you the book, but it's 704-779-8632. And of course, my
Um,
email, which is Big Eagle for you, the number 4, the letter U at gmail.com. Either way you want to get in
Somebody
touch with me.
get that for me, because I'm putting in the phone number. But guys, I love Ramona. If y'all want the book, order it from Amazon.
I'm going to do better. I'm definitely going to send those two to you so that you can send it off to the winner, Lisa. I definitely am. And
Mm,
one, both of them will be autographed. One will be
you
autographed to
heard that,
Lisa, and one
Lisa?
will be autographed to you.
You heard that, Lisa? See, I got a lot of witnesses now, Ramona.
That's
We've been
right.
having private
Witnesses.
conversations,
Hold me
but we got a
accountable.
lot of witnesses tonight. Ramona, can you give us your final thought?
My final thoughts. In 1 minute, it's 7:59. So in 1 minute, my
Go
final
ahead, because
thought.
I still got something I got to do behind it. Just go ahead.
Okay. Well, my final thoughts would be that we all have a story to tell. So share your story. For me, the greatest story ever told is the story of how God loved us so much that he sent his son, Jesus Christ, to die on the cross for us. He rose from the dead. And by placing our trust, our faith in him, we can have eternal, abundant life. So that's just the bare bones of the story. But read your Bible, it has the whole story in it. But that is the greatest story ever told about the greatest love that ever existed. All the stories that we tell about our life, our everyday existence, our wisdom, our experiences, those stories come from the fact that we are alive on this planet because God loved us so much, because of his grace, his love, his mercy. So I invite everyone to share their story, but also don't forget the most important story. And if you ever call me on that number, you'll hear my voicemail. And my voicemail always says to people, and I invite people to do it, call up and listen to my voicemail. It says, don't forget to listen to the master storyteller. Because if you listen to the master storyteller, all of your stories will have happy endings. And of course, most people think that I'm the master storyteller, that I'm referring to myself, but no, I'm not referring to myself. I'm referring to the best storyteller there ever was. And Jesus Christ was known as a storyteller because he communicated eternal truths through parables, through stories. So listen to the master storyteller.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Ramona, I want to thank you for joining us this evening. And there was just so much knowledge shared. And we appreciate that. And I encourage everyone out there, start doing some research on some of these other cultures out here because they're just as interesting as we think our culture, as we
Mhm.
believe our culture is. And when we know more about these other cultures, it prepares us to understand. It prepares us to just grow in love. And I appreciate you, Ramona. And I just want to thank every one of you guys for joining us this evening. Remember, share this post. We're here every Thursday. Tell your friends. Next Thursday, we will be honoring Veterans Day. And we have a sailor who spent 36, 38 years in the military. And he's going to come in and tell his story. And this is where we bring people in to share their stories, highlight the things that they're doing, and just show that we are so much more alike than we are different, regardless of what paths we have chosen to take in life. I have to thank Simone Enterprise and Entertainment Company again, KJ Multimedia Solutions, and TNT Real Estate. Remember, audience, follow us on all platforms. If you have people who you have family members or friends who are not on Facebook, Instagram, all that different stuff, when we're live here, we're also streaming live on YouTube. So we're on all those channels. Y'all join us. Tell somebody. And thank you, and thank you, and thank you, Ramona and Kenny. I thank you for the awesome production. Can't let tonight go by without thanking you. Could not have done this without you and Felicia, my team. So, with all of that being said, remember to show kindness to someone at all times. And we're going to say peace out. We love you and see you next Thursday.